This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Dan.
This
Stone.
is Dexter from The
This
Offspring.
is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is David Labb.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick
I'm
Gillette.
Christopher
This is
Vernoff.
Dr. Bob Greenberg.
I'm Laird Hamilton.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, I'm Mark Valley.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Tina Abbaszadeh, and you're listening to The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero, Mark Valley, and Pete A. Turner.
Tina Abbaszadeh is a photographer of musicians and many other things, but we know each other because you are a photographer of musicians, and you take pictures in the Bay Area, and beautiful ones.
Thank you.
And you've been kind enough to let me use some of those shots on our website for the artists that we've had on our show. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
And the shots that you take are beautiful, and you and I run in concentric circles in a couple of different identities of our lives.
As we've discovered.
Yeah. And those things overlap into a visual context, and that's what I want to explore with you. So how did you get into shooting? How did you get into photography, first of all, and then why musicians?
Well, that's a good question. I've always enjoyed photography, but it's always been just a very mild hobby. But I always seemed to be the person that had the camera and kind of made an effort to photograph an event or whatever. And I actually, a couple of years before I got into this music scene here in the Bay Area, which was in 2011, a couple of years before that, I'd actually started shooting macro photography, like insects. That was my thing. I went from insects to musicians, but I actually won some awards at the county fair for some photography that I did, and actually sold some pictures. And, so that was my thing. That was sort of what I was into. I had a whole portfolio of my insect photographs and things like that.
And you had lenses to get really close?
No, I actually, you would be surprised. Most people are surprised. My equipment is extremely low key, but I happened to have a camera. It was a Sony that I really loved, and I happened to just do really well with macro photography. In fact, I actually went out and shot with a photographer friend of mine who'd been a photographer for many, many years. She had her big lens, and I had mine, and she was irritated that she wasn't even getting the kind of macro shots that I was getting with my silly little camera that I had at the time. So then
So wait, were you creating a chemistry or something? Are you the bug whisperer? Can you look at a ladybug and go, hey?
I am the bug whisperer, yes. I will go out into a field. I am very happy to be left alone in a field or, anywhere outdoors and just sit there for a couple of hours and spot bees and, all types of things that I see in the area. And I'm I'm very good with that. But and then I ended up attending a show at the Club Fox in Redwood City. It was a benefit for Jimmy Sanchez, the drummer Jimmy Sanchez, and it was a benefit organized by Garth Weber and I think Jimmy's maybe ex-wife at the time or whatever. And it was attended by so many wonderful musicians that I'm actually friends with now. At the time I didn't know any of them, but I was invited there, and I was going through an interesting time in my life as well, but I was completely amazed by the whole event. I was amazed at the fact that the people sitting around me in the audience ended up being musicians that were getting up on stage and performing. I had no clue. I didn't know who anybody was. In fact, I'd ask, who's this person? And other people that I knew there were like, well, that's so-and-so, and that's so-and-so. I mean, names that I know now, but at the time, 6 years ago, May 3rd, I think it was, 2011, I had no idea. And now when I look back on those photos, I know everybody.
Yeah.
They're all my friends.
It's a small community.
Yeah.
And so you're at this event. It's a fundraiser, so everybody's pitching in.
Yes.
And so that dynamic, that doesn't surprise me. By the way, all of our listeners can see your work at tinaaaphoto.com, TINAA photo.com. And you should go take a look at everything that's on there. So all this stuff is whirring around you, and it's almost like wildlife photography, right?
I mean, everything's moving, and you don't want to use a flash, so you're just kind of taking it as it comes, whatever the lighting happens to be, and that, And so I took a bunch of pictures that night, and it was fun, and more importantly, I started attending different shows there at the Fox and also at the Pioneer, and different places, and I just became completely addicted to the music.
Yeah.
A total live music junkie. then I was continuing to take photographs, and kind of eventually some of the photographs were getting noticed, and certain musicians started asking me to come and take specific photos for them.
Sure.
And it just kind of became a thing. It wasn't intentional on my part. It kind of just grew into its own thing.
Yeah. Well, I know I don't have to flatter you, but the shots are beautiful. You managed to capture things that shade the artist in ways that make the dynamics with which they play come alive in the photography. And that's the thing that I noticed, and the thing that usually makes me, if I do a Bay Area musician, I hope you shot them, because I know then that I'll have a great picture. And the pictures are not only great for lighting and stuff, because I know that a lot of that for you is accidental, because you're taking live photos.
Completely accidental. I have no control over that. And I also, my equipment is so low key, and my skill set, my technical skill set is pretty much nil. I literally have very simple equipment. I just have, I do have an eye.
I'm not going to let her get listeners. I'm not going to let her.
It's true. It's true. My technical skills are none, but I do have an eye for
Go
composition.
Look at the pictures, everybody.
I do have an eye for composition, and thank God for Lightroom. You know, I can edit them afterwards and bring a little.
Well, that helps a lot.
Yeah. No. The Lightroom.
But it does
helps.
still take the eye.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, and I love that description, what you said. That makes me the happiest when I know that people see the picture, and I know that they can maybe get a sense of what it was like to be there at that moment.
Sure.
That's always what I'm trying to capture, what I find most compelling.
I feel like I can tell what they were playing.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at a picture of somebody you're shooting, and I can say, he's singing a ballad.
Yeah.
You know, because he's right here, he's digging deep. And you manage to get that out of a live performance with lighting that's not in your control, with an artist who's moving in ways that you did not direct.
Right.
You don't get to do any of that. All you get to do is capture.
Yeah. But
So
I
you-
listen.
Okay.
I listen. And that listening helps me know,
Here comes the big note.
yeah, here's the moment that
Yeah.
I know is going to be, because that's
Okay.
sometimes in the beginning, people would assume that I wasn't listening. People used to say to me, why don't you just listen? Why don't you just enjoy it? And I think what a lot of people have come to realize now is that I'm maybe listening more than anybody.
That is how you listen.
Yeah, that
You
is
know,
how I listen.
in much greater detail than most people notice, because they're busy doing what they think is listening.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I almost can't shoot very well without music, I've found.
Wow.
I actually shoot better with music. It's part of how I do my thing.
So this is not uncommon, though, in the conversations that we have with artists, where they say, like, I am not a technical artist.
Yeah.
I am not very good at the zeros and ones and what we find is that that's not where the technique is. The technique is in certain subtleties that come across in the end product. So there are a lot of guys who are great music nerds or photo nerds who can talk about lenses and talk about apertures and talk about things like that.
And I'm just not one of them.
But that's not what matters, right? That's not what makes the artist the artist. And I'm not detracting from anybody who's great at a particular, whatever the trade is.
Right.
You know, there are guys who read music beautifully and they can execute things, and I'm not saying that if you're a music nerd you don't have any soul. I'm not saying that at all.
Right, exactly.
But what I do want to say is there's a different kind of capture when you're concentrated on the soul of the work. Mm-hmm. And there you are. So low-key equipment, that doesn't matter. Low-key technique, that doesn't matter. And the real technique lies in understanding the movement of the artist based on what it is they're doing.
Yeah, for me, that's what's been my inspiration, and I think that's kind of my go-to.
Yeah.
I don't even usually force myself to photograph until I get into that sort of space, where I'm so into it and connecting with what's happening on the stage. And
Sure.
yeah, that's when I sort of start doing my thing.
Who's fun to shoot? Who comes to mind immediately as so much fun to shoot?
Oh my God, there's so many. I mean,
I don't want you to fall into the trap of just grabbing the last person you shot, because I know that's probably
I know,
what's
right?
sticky.
Right. No, but there are definitely some people who are more fun to shoot than others. And I think for me, it's always about when that moment happens where I call it the exchange, where you can see on stage that the people on the stage are having so much fun, and they are giving 100%. And then all of a sudden the audience starts giving 100%. And there's an energy shift in the room that everybody's forgetting everything else except for the music that's happening right at that moment. That's how it feels to me. And when I see artists, because there are artists that aren't fun to shoot, I would say, because sometimes I just feel like they're just doing the technical stuff, and people will say, oh, they're a great guitar player, they're this, but they don't seem to be giving of themselves. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to explain that, but it's like, they might be playing well. If I heard it on
tradesmen who come and do a great job in the trade.
Yeah, they might be great on an album or on a whatever, but they're not necessarily connecting with the audience. Uh-huh. And I would say it's more or less because I do so much live stuff. Yeah. It's a whole, it's a different end. I don't want it to, I want to feel what they're feeling. And when I know that they're really enjoying it, then it just makes it fun for all of us.
Yeah.
And
so that's maybe the spirit of what you're trying to capture, is the connection with the audience?
I think it is. I think it's just that moment where they're in the zone, and you can just see that they're either finding joy in the connection between the audience or between each other. Mm-hmm. And I think that not all artists think about the fact sometimes too, that we see what's going on the stage. Yeah. If they look back at somebody and give somebody a look because they didn't do that part, we see those things. So I don't like to see that stuff. I like to just see people kind of moving forward. Yeah. We notice those things less about the technical stuff. It's brought more to our attention when people are looking at each other on the stage and making those looks, as opposed to just enjoying the music and presenting what's there. It's a live performance. We know it's not always going to be perfect. There are going to be clams. There's going to be this, but you still make it happen and you put it out there,
Well, it happens in the other direction too. And those are my favorite moments, that when I'm watching live music and you see one musician look at another like, oh man, you killed right there.
When they're smiling at each other. Yeah. I love those shots. And I think that, getting back to moments that for me connect, or when I'm going through, a couple of thousand pictures I've chosen, I've shot the night before, I think about when I see two musicians looking at each other with that joy going, oh yeah, that's a picture. Yeah. That for me is one I'm going to go with, because that's that joy you're capturing. I love that. And I think that that's where hanging out with these guys and women, it doesn't matter, but just being in the community and actually in the scene. Right. I understand those relationships between people because I know so many of these band members. Now you have a depth of
relationship where you understand what that connection is, what that connection means. Yeah. When you see those expressions on people, there are a couple different things that I think are great to capture for that. And now I'm going to look at your work a little differently, because I'm going to look for that. But there are those musical relationships that have spanned years, and in the case of a lot of our mutual friends, decades. Mm-hmm. And then there are the relationships where, there's a passing of the torch, and one of the older guys has enlisted one of the younger guys, and you can see that connection. Yeah. And there's so much in those relationships. Oh, yeah. You know what I love, and it has nothing to do with photography, and I don't know if you can capture it, but I love a musical inside joke. Yeah. When there is some little nugget of a song, where some morsel of musical phrasing where somebody will play it and somebody else in the band will just laugh. I love that so much.
I completely had that situation recently. I won't say which gig it was, but it was a very high kind of a profile gig with a lot of great players that had come together. It was super special. And they were doing a certain set of music that's, the audience knows that music. They know that music. But the players that were playing it hadn't really played that song in a while. Okay. So even though they were, had played it a billion times in their lifetime, they hadn't played it recently. And just at the end of this one particular song, one of the guys looks over at the other guy, and I'm standing right there, and he's like, it's okay, I didn't know it either. I didn't remember it either, and it was just kind of a, even though the audience loved it and you listen to it and it all sounds good, but at that moment there was that little inside joke about, oh yeah, well, you missed that, or, but who cares,
But we missed it together.
But we missed it together, and we all got through it,
That's the thing about an impromptu jam that that makes the spontaneity work is usually you just, as long as you start on time and you stop on time, all the stuff in the middle, there are the changes too, but as long as you, like a blues jam, you get a 12-bar blues jam, you can go for half an hour. If you start on time and you stop on time, it's great, and it sounds composed.
Right.
And so if everybody missed the note, then it's fine. Exactly. That note wasn't supposed to be there.
Exactly.
Why don't you want to say who it was?
Oh,
I'm not going to coach you to say who it was.
Because I don't want to, it was all fine and all good. And the video's out there. It's posted. It's actually on the end of the video. You can actually hear that exchange happening. And we laughed about it in the backstage later. I was like, yeah. And I asked permission to say, hey, can I still post this even though you said that, or I can cut that out? They're like, no, just put it out there.
Yeah, see, that's veteran musicianship right there. It's
they
like,
know.
hey.
Yeah, we all had a good laugh.
Not only
about
did
it.
they know, but it's almost like an Easter egg for the long timers, because the long timers get to be in on the joke too.
Right.
And those moments and the ability to point a camera at those moments and capture those moments. I want you to make a book. I really want you to make a book, because I think you're capturing.
Kate Garcia is going to be very happy to hear you say that.
Okay. Well, the Bay Area is very special musically.
Yeah, that's true.
There's something going on here that doesn't go on everywhere else, and there always has been.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. I mean,
and you are pointing your camera at a generation of musicians that deserves, to me, a lot more than they get, because there are plenty of deserving acts out there. But let's say the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We know that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that's great. Mm-hmm. But the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame misses a lot.
Absolutely.
So much. And they're all the way in Cleveland.
Yeah.
So they don't get everything that's happening out here. And there's so much that's happened out here. And you and I dig deep in this musical community. Mm-hmm. And every once in a while, we still unearth something that makes us go, well, I've known this guy for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really understand, some connection, whatever it was.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe I'm all embroiled in like Pete Souza's work right now, or just other photographers who have done just, these big pieces of work where they have captured some chunk of something. You're capturing a big chunk of something really, really special.
Yeah. And I feel so fortunate because I'm getting to enjoy all the great music in the meantime. Mm-hmm. And I feel so honored to be just embraced enough to be able to say, hey, I'm crushing your gig tonight. And, because I get so many invitations. I constantly have people inviting me to gigs.
Sure.
We'll put you on the...
Why wouldn't somebody want pictures that you've taken of their gig?
In all honesty, all I can respond is like, well, if I don't have a paying gig, I'll try to come out to that. But then there are some gigs that I just am like, I want to be there for that gig. And then I'll message and say, hey, I'm coming. They're like, come on
in.
You know? So getting to be there and like, when I'm with Tower of Power, I have free reign. And so when other bands give me that kind of free reign, it's really great, especially if it's a bigger thing, or to be up at Yoshi's and to be able to get in that spot where, there's people on the outside.
Yeah, people aren't supposed to be up there, but they'll let you up there.
Right, exactly. And I'm back there trying to give a sense of what it's like, for them on the stage.
Yeah.
And sometimes occasionally a fan will, say, oh, well, I can't hear right because of this and that. And it's not always about that. It's not always about, because I'm just videotaping with my phone. Mm-hmm. I'm not here again. I'm not using any fancy equipment. But, I have pretty good results. And if I'm in the front, well, then great. And then it's always like, well, if you're standing in front of this monitor, it's never going to be perfect. But for me, it's not about that. I can't control all that. And I don't have the desire to carry around so much equipment that I'm constantly, it's just about bringing that moment to other people. And when I start to put something out there, whether it's a live thing or a post, and people go, hey, I'm watching from Hawaii, or I'm watching from England, or I'm watching from New Zealand, I just totally dig that. The fact that you're bringing that to them, or people say, yeah, I was just sitting in my bed and I, opened up the Facebook and there you were, and I feel like I'm right there out at the gig,
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's what I love. I love bringing people there, Are
you really shooting with your phone?
I am shooting videos with my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the videos I do are with my phone.
You're capturing with your phone. That's great.
Capturing with my phone.
Wow.
Yeah, with my iPhone. I just just put it out there and do my thing.
Yeah.
And I look at what what I find interesting. I just kind of see what I think is compelling. And because I'm listening to the music, I think sometimes I miss because I'm shooting photos and videotaping at the same time. So I'm whipping out my camera, and then maybe I'm getting my video a little off into some land that doesn't belong.
Trying
Somebody's
to do
belly
two things
button.
at once. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I go, oops, bring it back.
My bad.
But I can't help myself. I'm like, I got a camera and a phone and, yeah.
So you're shooting with your phone. You're taking pictures at the same time. That requires a low-key setup.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's you, and you got to carry all that stuff around.
Right.
So whatever all that stuff has to be you got to have a minimalist
I have
setup.
a tiny pouch I have as my purse. All it has is my credit card, a little cash, and my phone, my lipstick.
Yeah.
That's it. That little pouch
Just
never
getting
leaves me.
around
I don't
stuff.
bring a purse. I don't bring any equipment I have to put down. My camera is also strapped onto my side. It's what's called a bridge camera, but it's really the size of a pocket camera.
Okay.
Occasionally, I have another camera I'll use for an outdoor thing, but it's still just a kind of a little bit larger version of that. But for the most part, I walk in. That's why sometimes people go, "Oh, you didn't bring your camera?" And I go, "No, it's right here. This is it."
Yeah.
It usually does require for me to be pretty close.
Close up, yeah.
And that's where I like it.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it's my phone for the videos and my 99% of the time my little Sony for what I shoot.
That's the other thing about the photos you take. They are intimate.
Yes.
You are close up, and it's not a fake close up with a telephoto lens. You're all up in people's business.
Yeah, I'm all up in people's business. In the beginning, it was people are used to me now.
Yeah.
People are used to me now. Now I'm like, just do your thing. I really don't like when people mug for me. I have to laugh. I'm going to call Vince out from the Club Fox. He runs the Jam. And he used to get mad at me because I would just be encroaching on as soon as I'd go past that invisible barrier of the stage, I'm sticking my arm out. He's like, don't be in their way. Like in the beginning, I used to see him coming out of the corner of my eye to come and yell at me to, tell me to move. But now it's not even a thing. It's like anywhere I want to be.
Well, you are, like you said, you're listening. So you have a sense of when to be there and when to get out of the way. Yeah. And what in the way is going to be defined by the artist, and they'll tell you if you're in the way.
Right. And so far, nobody has. So
yeah, take it easy, Vince. they'll tell her.
And he's honestly one of my dearest friends now, and we're all good. But
Sure.
I just have to laugh and sometimes remember those days when,
When you hear, Tina, that's my belly button. Get out of my belly button.
Exactly.
Then you'll know. Short of that, I think that everybody loves the pictures you take of them. I mean,
I try. I always try to give new artists, I'll send them a little message if I can on Facebook saying, hey, I took, or if I'm meeting them for the first time and I'm at a gig, and I'll say, I'm Tina, I'm going to be taking some pictures. And if I ever post anything you don't like, send me a message and I will take it down. No questions asked.
yeah.
I haven't had that many people take me up on it, but occasionally, I would say it's a very minute percentage compared to the amount of photos I take, but yeah.
Some people take themselves very, very seriously.
They take themselves very seriously, yes.
I think the other thing is we are talking about artists who are photographed by the general public at these shows so much. So it's like if there's a picture up there that's not your greatest shot, well, guess what? There's probably 10,000 others just like it in people's phones.
Yeah.
And
although
luck.
I get it. I mean, I do.
But yeah, you're publishing
make an
photos.
effort. Right.
So,
and people are coming to my page, and where they may not see that little guy over there who took that weird shot and put it on his Facebook page, they may see it. They're going to have more exposure on mine because of the people that come to my page. And I do try to take things that don't make people look bad, because I have seen some bad shots.
Yeah,
but
that doesn't do anybody any good. It doesn't do the viewer any good because the viewer wants to have a rich experience, and a rich visual experience to go with all the music that they love, and
it's
so
hard.
everybody wants that.
Vocalists, I think, are the hardest because they've always got their mouths open.
Yep.
And then they go,
They've always got their mouths open. They always have a crazy look on their face.
Well, you're a vocalist. There's not a whole lot I can do about that. But then I've had this conversation with like good friends of mine, like Terry O'Dobby, fabulous, amazing, wonderful vocalist. And she, we used to have this conversation at the beginning. It was like, yeah, but if you look back at pictures of like Etta James and people doing their thing, and when you see those pictures that are so compelling, where you know they were in that moment and they were really putting it all out there, they've got their mouths open too.
And those are the pictures we love.
Those are the pictures we love, right? So it's just like, guess what? It's just going to happen. And now, and I think that those conversations happen and you realize, yeah, it's okay.
So, okay, artists, make your teeth right. Don't eat broccoli during the sound check. And you're fine.
Right.
Don't worry about it.
Exactly.
I don't get releases either for the show because I believe that the only thing that keeps our shows published is the subject's ongoing agreement that should be out in the world.
Right.
And so when you just have a policy of, look, we're not trying to sneak up on you and capture a photo of you that, is startling or unflattering in any way.
Right.
That's just that's just what allows people to say, no, go ahead and stick your arm in there. Go ahead and come past the stage. Yeah. Get the shot. If you think there's a shot in there, go get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Like I said, most people nowadays they're used to me. And if I meet a new artist that I know isn't, I just give them a heads up. I'm going to be a little bit in your face, but don't worry about me. Just do your thing,
So we know that you shoot Tower of Power, and I want to talk about that. But you say new artist. Who's a new artist that we haven't really seen a whole lot of that is great?
And when I say new artists, sometimes I refer, they
might be new to you.
New to me, or I might be new to them.
Right.
But, new artists. Well, I find that I'm always being introduced to new people through the scene, which is always fun because it's easy to go out and see all the people that we know and love, which I do quite often. But then every once in a while, you want to get out there and see somebody you haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And
that you're being introduced to them sort of does the vetting for you.
Yeah.
You're getting you're going to see a quality act because you're among friends.
Yes, and then especially if they're out of the area and they come back around, it's nice to be able to know and to help because I love to help promote the music. And so when I put out something out there and I say, hey, you guys may not be aware of who this person is, but let me just tell you, this is worth getting out to come and see. So for instance, Alex Nestor, she's a wonderful vocalist that I saw when she performed with Santana, actually with Santana's son. She's in his band. Mm-hmm. Because, Tony Lindsay was there, and he got us backstage. She ended up seeing some of my pictures. We had a mutual friend in Tony. She messaged me. She and I became friends, but she has beautiful voice, plays keys. And so now I look forward to when she comes back into the area, and I always want to make sure everybody knows how great she is, and then I hope to do some traveling at some point. So it's nice to know that I have all these different, I recently went up to Washington and Portland area, and I got to see a lot of Facebook friends, musicians that I've never met who are performing up there. So I'm hoping to go up there more this year, go back for the Waterfront Blues Festival, stay with the Osbournes, Michael Osborne and his wife. He played with John Lee Hooker. Uh-huh. And
wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So, and I have friends that live up there in Washington, Louis Payne and his wife. And so I hope to do more of that. I hope to get down to LA. I hope to get out to Memphis again and maybe
Austin,
New Orleans.
Sure.
Yeah. I've never been in Nashville. I'd love to do it. These are all, of course, I don't know that I'll be able to make this happen, but if I did, and also Paretta, Italy. Mm-hmm. They have a soul festival out there.
That sounds
amazing.
Like fun. Yeah.
And all my friends are going to be there this year, so I really want to go out there. So we'll see what happens.
Well, in Italy, you get in these mountain villages. I don't know this for a fact. I've never been to anything like this, but we had Stuart Copeland on the show, and he said that you get out there and you just promise a village that you're going to throw a concert, and they'll give you a place to practice for a couple months.
Oh, yeah.
And let you do your thing, and then you throw an entire village event around your show.
Yeah.
And they want to do that.
Yeah.
All the time.
Right.
So I think if you go in the summer, you go in the spring or the summer, you're just going to trip and fall and land on all kinds of stuff to take pictures of. Plus, Italy is just... I recently heard Italy described as a beautiful woman who does not age. And no matter what, all of the other cities will come and go, and they'll get rejuvenated and all of this business. But Italy will always stay right in the sweet spot.
Yeah, well.
And always be photogenic and always be beautiful, no matter what season, no matter what everything.
And they're such a gracious people, you know, which is just so.
Are you just saying that because you're Italian?
That's part of the reason.
That's part of the reason.
I've actually been to Italy. I spent a month there.
Yeah.
But, and I think it's, you know, it's in our nature to sort of, you know, embrace others. You know?
I agree. And I've been the recipient of that. I married an Italian woman.
Oh, there you go.
And aside from marrying into an Italian family that embraced me wonderfully, I've been to Italy too, and it was such an amazing experience. And I'd like to go back. I'd like to go back and live there.
Believe me, when I think about, is there another country that I would want to live besides here, especially now? Italy.
Yeah, that's a tricky question right now, especially.
It don't even get me started.
So, I mean, you know, if you have a fountain of money, that's an easy thing to do, and there are other countries that you'd want to live by. For me, they're all right around there. Like, I'd love to live in the south of France or, you know, Monaco, but close to Italy. Yeah. If not right in Malta, maybe even.
Oh yeah, that would be. I've always wanted to see Malta. And I want to go to Sicily because half my family is from Sicily.
Okay.
And my son just came back from Italy. He just spent a couple of weeks there, and I was so happy that he got to do that. Because
that's a life-altering experience.
It's very life-altering. He wants to go back so bad.
Yeah.
And I hope to go back with him at some point. So
did he come back changed?
You know, he's an amazing kid anyway, and I do think it changed him only in a way that he got to see some things that were outside of this, and he just completely embraced it and loved it. And plus he was with his brother and sister and their spouses, and he just was like, it was a very bonding, you know, just wonderful, positive time for him. And
so we're going with yes.
Oh yeah.
It's just when I think you go on a trip like that, when you're surrounded by, and we're going to tie this back to your photography, because the thing about the human experience is when you surround yourself with beauty, whether it's beauty that you hear, see, experience, smell, taste, all of those things. And Italy is almost overwhelming in that it captures all of them.
Yeah.
And when you insert yourself in something, practically anything that's different from where you always live, and you just insert yourself in something, it does create perspective that's a little different.
Yeah.
But when it's something that's that beautiful, and when you're surrounded by loved ones who are just, so it's not only that you're getting that, but you're getting it emotionally too.
Oh, yeah.
You can't help but be enriched and come back a little.
Absolutely.
I don't want to, I mean, different's not the right word, but different is the right word.
Oh,
you come back a little different.
Yeah, you do. You just come back a little bit more. I did it when I was 16, and I never forgot that trip. I remember so many details that, you know, here it is 40 years later, and I still remember specific details so clearly. And I know that he's having that same experience where it just made an impression on him, and how it was to be able to, you know, move around and just enjoy the people and the scenery and the food. And
And you never, and he never will know when you recall something. You know, you're always finding yourself in situations, I know that you went through this because I did too, where you find yourself in a situation where you recall that trip and you recall something about it, and it just enhances whatever you have to give at that moment to that thing.
Right.
And really, that's what we're trying to do, is collect those experiences. And so this is why I want you to collect what you're capturing and make a book for us, so that we can, just kind of have the whole thing.
It's on my list.
Okay.
For 2018, I have a couple of people that just regularly message me, when's the book coming out?
Okay.
You know, it's so I
Well, I'm happy to say that it wasn't an original idea.
Yeah.
There are more of us who say, "Hey, there should be a whole book of this stuff."
Yeah, I gotta
Do
get
you
it done.
follow the work of any other photojournalist? Like, right now I'm into Pete Souza because just released a book of all the pictures that he took of. I don't know if that book was just of all the presidents that he shot, because he shot 3 different presidents, or if it was just Barack Obama.
Yeah, and I don't know. I know that he was, with him quite a bit.
Yeah.
I am a fan of other photographers, and in fact, I was just watching a cable show called Abstract, and they featured a photographer in that, and he's famous for shooting these portraits. And I was just like, I looked at his stuff, and it moved me. Yeah. And I thought, if that's how I can make maybe some other people feel when they see my photos, then that's what I could hope for. That's the dream. Like, if I can feel compelled, or you see Annie Leibovitz, or you see somebody, a musician who I have a great deal of respect for, and who a lot of other people do too, messaged me recently, and he was talking about Bruce Steinberg from back in the day, who used to follow the bands around and do a lot of the same thing that I'm doing now in the Bay Area. He was hanging out with the bands, and he was shooting their photos, and there's a whole body of work of his, pre-Lightroom, pre all this stuff, and this musician messaged me. He said, basically you're doing what he did back in the day. And I'm not talking about quality of photos or anything like this. I'm just saying just that,
you've taken the torch of capturing it.
Documenting it, yeah. And to try and when I look back at Bruce's stuff, or when somebody posts something on Facebook and says, oh, he took this cover of Tower of Power, and he took this picture of Santana, and he, back in the day, and Lydia Pence and Cold Blood and all those bands were out here, just getting started. I'm so grateful to see those images, to see these guys when they were doing that. And I think, okay, this is important work. This is important work.
Yeah, it sure is. It sure is.
It's like, yeah.
You know what? I'm happy to say that a lot of the folks you just named have held up pretty well.
Oh, my gosh.
Because when you go back and look at those old photos and you go, man, there's a young whomever. I don't want to single anybody out, because everybody's held up well. Oh. Thank God they made it through all the things that they made it through.
Tower of Power, 50 years.
Okay, let's go ahead and talk specifically about Tower of Power, because we've had 50 years for
50 years. They'll be celebrating this year at the Fox Theater in Oakland, June 2nd, I think.
So when I was very, very small, I'm going to take it just a pause right there for a second, because I want to name drop. I went to Italy with my friend Mehdi Ahmadi. He had a record label called X.25 in Emeryville, and we had a lot of great artists that we were promoting. And one day, his partner in the label was his brother Abe, Ibrahim, and the two of them were going to go on a trip to a trade show out there called Midem. It's the big music record trade show in Europe. And the day before they were scheduled to leave, Abe figured out he couldn't go.
Oh.
And I don't know specifically why, but I know that he came in the office. Mehdi and I were in the office every day. Abe was not in the office every day. But he was around for several days leading up to the trip, to prepare. And then, for whatever reason, he was a surgeon of some sort. So I imagine it was his work that pulled him away and said, no, you can't leave right now because of whatever.
Right.
So he couldn't go, and Mehdi had to go by himself. And so he asked me, hey, can you get on a plane tomorrow to France? And, the answer to that question is, oh, hell yes. I'll be on that plane. That's why I keep my passport active for just such an emergency.
That's why I'm getting my passport this year.
Good.
I don't know if I'm going to need it, but I'm getting it
You
lined
know
up.
that when you do, it'll be ready. That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
So I found myself on an Air France plane eating pâté the next day. And that led to the great trip to France. We also went to Monaco. We went to Italy. So I just want to give him a shout out, because that was an enriching experience, and it's his fault that I got to do that. Back to Tower of Power. When I was 4 years old, my dad taught me how to work his record player. I don't know if he taught me how, or I just watched him, and then when he went away, I put the headphones on and did it myself. But there were two records that I gravitated towards for a reason that will be obvious in just a moment. One of them was War, The World is a Ghetto, and the other one was Bump City.
Yeah.
And the reason that I was attracted to those records was because I was 4 years old, and both those records have a cartoon cover.
Right.
So I saw that drawing of the chicken bone and the fist holding the chicken bone, and I thought, well, this must be a good record. And I put it on, and thus began my love affair with Tower of Power. And now you are capturing them in their 50th year of performance. And we've had a few members of Tower of Power. Now, I studied with Dave years ago and was not as serious a student as he needed me to be. We have not reunited, but I'm ready for that come to Jesus meeting and to hear what for about it. But we had Mick Gillette on our show before he passed, and he was terrific.
Yeah.
And I will always love Mick Gillette.
Yeah.
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 Such a lovable guy.
Yeah.
We also had Michael Jeffries on recently.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a new album coming out, too, I think.
He does have a new album coming out. His episode with us got really deep, really fast. I think I annoyed him because we were scheduled to meet at whatever time, and just like I was here with you today, I was a little bit late.
It's okay.
Not quite as late as I was with you.
It's okay.
But in Michael's case, I figured I promised him I would make him a meal. So I was at Safeway getting groceries, and I showed up at 6:05 instead of 6 o'clock. Meanwhile, he showed up 10 minutes early because that's the kind of guy he is. And so he's sitting in the living room tapping his foot, wondering, man, I made arrangements, and my arrangements aren't being honored. So when I got there, he was a little bit aggravated. But if there's an upside to that, it was as soon as I turned the mics on, he wasted no time getting down to business. And we were talking about his career as a singer, his evolution as an artist, and then we talked about the Tower years that he endured, and he came with the good, the bad, and the ugly real fast. And it was not to disparage anybody. It was to say that that band is full of survivors, and that what they've done in the amount of time that the band has survived has been just a remarkable display of perseverance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at 50 years. You're not going to ever get there without there being peaks and valleys and that whole thing. And the fact that they are still a band after all those years with 4 original members too.
Yeah.
Some that have come and gone, like David leaving and coming back.
Yep.
But yeah.
And let's face it, they have been a band that has always been swimming against the stream. I mean, hey, let's make a horn band with a ton of guys in it is not the easiest thing to do ever.
Right.
I mean, especially now, but even back then when bands were typically larger and there was room for more variety in the record business.
Right.
Just having that many guys to lug around and to make that be your trademark.
Yeah. So kind of, and I just recently listened to an interview with Mimi, I forget who it was with, and he talks about, exactly what happened to encourage him to bring the horns in, and like he did. And it was just, he talks about a band or coming up against another band that they thought they were going to be like, and that other band just ended up kicking their, what.
Yeah.
And he said the next day, I think we're going to add some
another
horns.
band kick their butt.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. This was,
that was
like
a long,
early
long
on.
time ago.
And so he goes, the next day I went out and
They haven't
decided to add
experienced
in
that syndrome in quite a
these
while.
other horn players. And he goes, and then it was,
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And then it was time.
Yeah. He's like, wow, look at all those horns,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mimi for our listeners.
Emilio
Castillo.
Castillo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So look him up. Look up Tower of Power. All our listeners look up Tower of Power all the time. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, in capturing a band that size, what are the dynamic differences when you add in things like horns? Like, what's the advantage to shooting a big band with a horn section?
Well, oh God. I mean, first of all, for me, I love a horn band. I just do,
Yeah, me too.
And, I mean, it's so exciting. I'll tell you what the initial challenges were, and then we sort of worked around those. But initially when I first started photographing them, I was a friend of Rick Stevens, so that's how I came in to be with the band.
Okay.
Rick Stevens
May he rest in peace.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
Very dear, sweet man, dear, sweet friend. I can't,
soulful guy.
Soulful guy. And so my ex-brother-in-law was his best friend back in the day.
Wow.
Back when, Santana, Michael Carabello, and all those guys were around this area. And so this was obviously before he went away. And so when he came back out and we reunited, it was like, I introduced himself. I was like, I'm Sandy Peralta, my sister's, who he knew very well. I'm her little sister from back in the day when you used to come by the house,
Wow.
And he was like, oh my God. And from that moment on, it was like we were family.
Yeah.
It was like, you're family because they're family. So
Yeah.
you're family. And he basically insisted that, whenever he had a gig or he was going to sit in with Tower, he'd sit in with whatever, Lydia Pensacola, he would call me. We had our little joke. He was Ike, I was Tina. And we'd always have this exchange, which always started out with something like, hey, Tina, where are my mics? I've got your check. Don't throw my mics away, babe. And I'd be like, your check bounced. I want cash next time, And we would always, So in any case, he would always, give me a shout out and invite me to come to these gigs to shoot him with these bands. And so, even to the point of where he would like sometimes insist, like I have another good friend now who the first time she heard my name was Rick insisting that I come and photograph the thing. And she's like, oh, we already have a photographer for the event. And he's like, yeah, I still want my girl to come
whatever
and do this.
Yeah.
She goes, that's the first time I ever heard your name. Now she and I are good friends. So in any case, I started, hanging around with the band. I knew Tom Politzer, just through the scene a little bit, not well. And then I got to, meet and know everybody. And then, of course, I told Mimi, okay, well, my sister was, and he's like, oh, how was she doing? So to him too, he kind of treated me like family immediately. And then getting to know all the other guys, and Roger Smith, the keyboard player who I'm very close to. I mean, he truly like a brother, helping him with his Bump City Wine stuff. And then David, who I'm also very close to. I mean, just the entire band sort of adopted me. We adopted each other.
Yeah.
I was basically a stalker photographer who sort of started hanging out. And then it was to the point where, hey, are you coming? Are you going to be here? So it was kind of this thing where, it sort of happened.
Like, who is this chick always reaching in, taking these pictures? And then before you know it, it was like, where's the chick reaching in, taking pictures?
Yeah, where is she? Exactly. Yeah. And then I remember, never forget Roger, one year at San Mateo, Roger's like, okay, so you're going to be on the stage with us because I realize you can't get to the rhythm section, the back, because you got the whole horn, you got 10 guys, right?
Yeah.
I've got, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, Roger, I can't be on stage. He goes, no. You should be anywhere we're going to be. I'm like, I'll tell the tour manager. I'm like, so then I'm coming in and and so my favorite spot right there between David and Roger, sitting on the stage between David Garibaldi and Roger Smith. And I'm like, okay, my definition of heaven. And getting these shots that I wouldn't normally get.
And hearing the stage mix.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then sneaking over to Rocco, who'd always look over at me like, what are you doing over there? Like, why are you there? Why is she here? And then Jerry, so... and I'd always get my little spot reserved in the front where I'd be maybe between the barricade where the audience is behind me and I'm between the barricade and the stage. I'm like, hello,
right?
Who doesn't want to have
best seat
that
in the house,
seat, right? I'm like, got the whole range. And then you get Tom Politzer making faces at me when he does his solos. So, I always catch those in the middle of the night. I'll be scrolling through pictures and then I'll see that picture where Tom went, made a face at me or something. It's all good. It's just, it's great fun. And they allow me that access, which allows me to be able to share those images with everybody else.
Well, and that's what they and we all get in return is that you capture something very special in very special angles where we get to see the faces while they're doing the thing that we love that they do. Yeah. So navigating the stage in a big, complicated band setup like that, where's your favorite place to shoot them?
Oh, I if I'm not out in front, doing my little space to be able to just kind of move back and forth along
I'm talking
the
about
stage.
venue.
You mean
have
where's my favorite place to shoot?
location
Tower?
Uh-huh.
Oh God. Okay. Well, definitely, I think the San Mateo County Fair is definitely one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, you have space there.
Yeah, because I can really, like I said, I can get on stage. At Yoshi's, I love the Yoshi's gigs, but I can't. It's a little more challenging for me.
It's really, really tight.
Yeah, I don't get on stage with them at the Yoshi's gigs because it's already so tight.
So
right?
tight.
And then in the front, because I typically need to be up close. I don't always come in and reserve a seat. I mean, I have my own badge, so I'm with the band, but
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have a seat that is designated for me right up front.
Because you have to float.
But people are so great because people will recognize me or know me, and they'll go, "Do you want to take my seat for this song? Do you want to? I'm going to get up. Let's trade. Do you want to come sit here?" I mean, and I'm like, "Great.
Yeah.
Sit down, get up close, do my thing."
That's the Tower fan community.
Exactly. And it's happened to me occasionally at some other gigs too. And I'm like, just like, how kind of those people to just give up their seat for a song so I can get a few shots in at that point. And the fans are, Tower Power fans are like no other fans, I mean, Tower really nurtures their fans, I think, by having all these, opportunities to meet with the fans either before or after the show, and they really bond with their fans.
Well, and many Tower fans have been there for decades.
Yes, longer than I have.
So, there's never I don't imagine there's too much. Well, I don't know. There probably is plenty of occasions where somebody gets to meet Tower Power for the first time, but there are probably a ton of people who, like you, have a connection to where they've been a musical pillar in the Bay Area for so long that if you grew up in the Bay Area playing music or listening to music or loving music, however, and it doesn't matter what kind of music, there's always been some connection where you're like, oh yeah, of course I know who Tower Power is. Yeah. I loved Huey Lewis, or I loved, just some other thing that might have been not necessarily Tower that drew you to Tower.
Exactly. Right.
So,
well, and Huey did, so much for them.
Yeah.
And there's it's so great that there's so many people around the world that get exposed to them and still are such diehard fans. I mean, I'm amazed. I get messages from people all over the world. Can you ask so and so this question, or can you ask David about this, or how do I get tickets to the 50th? I'm coming out from Holland or from Germany. And, it's, if you ever come to New Zealand with them, you can stay with us. They're so generous. You almost become, if they perceive you as part of the family, you're part of their family.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I went to David's house when I was a kid, and I auditioned to be a student. And you know what I did? I sat down at his red Yamaha drum set, and I played Squib Cakes. Oh, yeah. All wrong. All wrong. It was terrible. He let me stay anyways. So that gives you an idea of the generosity of a guy like Dave Garibaldi.
Yeah.
Who is, by the way, let's just say this. Thank God he has recovered beautifully from getting... This is some superhero stuff right here.
Oh, my God.
He got hit by a train. Who in the universe gets to say, I've been hit by a train? When you think you're tough, oh, yeah, you know what? I climbed the face of El Capitan. Yeah. He got hit by a train.
I have been putting the hashtag, occasionally you'll see it, tougher than the train. I mean, because...
Yeah, that's mad
quite
business
honestly,
right there.
People ask you, or if they don't know, they go, oh, well, they were in a car or something, right? I'm like, no, they got freaking walking across the tracks. They were like they got
physically,
hit
personally hit by a train.
Okay, 2 of them.
Yeah.
And they both survived. And I just talked to David the other day. I don't think I'm telling tales out of school if I say that, he had
I love that expression.
a physical, or his train, said that he's actually like physically, just like,
he's doing great.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I just shot a live video. Marcus Scott, the youngest member of the band, the newest and the youngest, right?
Yeah.
In great physical shape. And, I go to Vegas to be with these guys, and I always love to do the little live feed stuff from the sound check because people just totally dig it. Yeah. They're just like,
sound check is the best.
Oh, it's the best. I love sound check. And so there they are throwing down, getting down, with their push-ups, who can do the most
Oh,
push-ups,
man.
it's David and Marcus,
It's come down to a push-up contest.
Oh,
You
yeah.
don't get in a push-up contest with a guy who's been hit by a train.
Oh no, but he actually did more push-ups than Marcus. Marcus like, wait, I thought we were stopping.
doesn't
What's going on?
surprise me.
Yeah, yeah. And David, David Garibaldi, I have to say, one of the kindest, most humble, most encouraging people. Like, he will not let you not. It's like, no, you will do this.
Yeah.
You will do this.
It's happening.
Not, you're going,
Right.
this is going to happen. And that's, I think, how he moves through these things. And I think it's probably a big part of his recovery and moving past this thing. You won't find him talking about a lot. You'll find other people or me or somebody else talking about it more than he will, because he's kind of like, okay, yes, that happened. And that was then, and this is now.
Yep.
And we're still
We're moving
forward.
forward. Yeah.
We're moving forward. And that the surgeon who took care of him that night, the trauma surgeon, actually made a comment saying, what an incredible human being. Now, this is a man who had to make that assessment while David came in after being hit by a
While
train.
reconstructing a person who had been hit by a train. Yeah.
So you got to wonder what went on to give him that impression.
Yeah.
At that point. So
That was something.
yeah. So it's pretty great.
And the other guy was Mark Van Wageningen,
Yes.
who is back to his old tricks too,
He
and doing
is.
great.
Absolutely.
I was at Yoshi's for his triumphant return. Did you shoot
Yes,
that?
I was there. I
Okay.
was there. Yeah.
So,
You kidding? I made myself a promise that night.
oh,
I was not going to miss their first time back or their first time back to Yoshi's, and I kept my promise to myself.
wow.
Yeah. That was a special night. The surgeon actually, or the trauma nurse from that night came in. And,
Oh, no kidding.
yeah, I think he got a standing ovation along with his girlfriend, who was a first responder that night.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty special.
Well, hey, that's a lovely couple keeping the world together right there.
We took pictures of them, and we made them heroes that night, and they
Well,
deserved it.
Yes, you captured the fact that they were heroes because they were heroes more than just that night.
Yes.
Let's talk about how we move forward, because we're sort of rounding third base on this thing.
Okay.
First of all, how was this? This was not bad, huh? It's
Yeah,
pretty
no,
easy to do,
it's
wasn't
good.
it?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay.
It's always a little interview. When I wrote you back, I was like, why do you want to interview me? I'm not a musician.
I get that a lot. I'm not going to have anything to say.
Yeah.
And it's like an hour. I don't have an hour worth of stuff to
Yeah.
say. And then before we know it, we're like, hey, so we've been here an hour and 20 minutes.
Exactly.
One of the great regrets in my life was when we did have Mick on our show. We had so much fun with him, and it was one of those things where there was no pretense about how he didn't have an hour's worth of material. He was like, yeah, I got an hour.
Yeah.
Let's go. So somewhere around an hour and 45, I said, look, man, I could do this all night, but I'm sort of taking up your evening. And he said, no, this has been great. And, I said, well, we'd love to have you back. And he said, I'll do this with you once a month if you want me to. And I said, if you're giving me permission, I will come here as often as you give me permission to come here. And that was just before he passed.
Yeah.
And, so the great regret I have in my life is that the month after we said, hey, are we going to get together? And I think the month after was December. So it was like Christmas was
Yeah.
rolling around, and it was,
Yeah.
and he was like, ooh, this is kind of tough. Let's start our monthly thing next month. And then we captured what I think is the very last interview that he ever gave. And it was very brief on New Year's Eve at the Empress in Vallejo,
Yeah.
just before he passed. Anyway, we're still down here and we still love you, Mick. So I want to say that and let that go.
Yeah.
However, I'm going to say that the work that you're doing is not only a pleasure to look at, but it is very important. And I'm really pulling for you to get this book going. So anything at all that we can do to get behind that effort and help promote that effort and try to grease the skids and make anything happen that needs to happen for this book to come to fruition, by all means, count me in.
Thank you
And,
so much.
We'll do it.
The encouragement is great. It's great. I sort of put some stuff out there into the universe in my New Year's wish list, and I hope to make a good percentage of that come true. I didn't specifically talk about the book, but that is something in my
All right.
So we'll see.
Well, so you said that you really started this journey photographing musicians around 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of photos.
I have photos I haven't even had time to touch.
Sure.
I haven't even gone through because I always try to capture stuff when I'm out. And sometimes I have to, obviously I have to work on the photos I'm being paid to shoot first.
Yeah.
So sometimes the other ones, I want to make sure I had captured them, but I don't always have time to stop what I'm doing and work on them before I put them out there into the Facebook universe or online or whatever. And I quite honestly have 3 other jobs, and so it keeps me pretty busy. I have a full-time day job, and so yeah.
Well, what we'll do is not only wait with bated breath, but do everything that we can to help you get that going. What are you looking forward to shooting this year that you haven't shot yet? Is there anything in the works?
Well, yeah, there's a couple things I'm really looking forward to. Obviously, the 50th anniversary show.
Yeah.
That's kind of a no-brainer, right? Although I know that that's going to be sort of a big production, and I think I'll probably be somewhat limited, more so than I am normally, because I don't want to interfere with some of the other production stuff that's going to be going on.
Yeah.
But what I'm actually most looking forward to, which I'm hoping to be able to do, I'm hoping to be able to shoot some of the rehearsals.
Yeah.
Which for me almost exceeds the idea of even doing the show, because that interconnectivity, that personal time with them, especially with a band that I know so well, and to be there and in that intimate, being able to document some of that.
Yeah.
For me, and what I'll be able to put out there and what I'd be able to do. But for me, that just is something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah.
I don't know how many days I'll get to do it or when, but if I can make that happen, some of that behind the scenes stuff, I think that's something I'm really looking forward to. But yeah.
I think I would love if, just because I have you, I'm going to give you my input. I would love for you to capture as much rehearsal footage as you can, because rehearsal is the best.
Right.
Here's the best way that I can explain it is to say that, let's say you're admiring your supermodel from afar, whoever it is, Christy Teigen or Brad Pitt or whomever.
Right.
A rehearsal with a band is getting to spend Sunday in sweatpants with that person.
Yeah.
So, of course, you want to see somebody all gussied up in their dress on the red carpet and all that business. But Sunday in sweatpants.
Yeah.
That's where it counts. And when you get to kick back and enjoy that vibe, and when you get to see musicians stretch, because that's when during a performance, you have to deliver the performance. In rehearsal is where you get to go, let's see how far we can push this.
Right.
And that's where you get the looks and the exchanges and the relationship.
That's why I love sound check so much.
Yeah.
It's
a little taste
or
of
the
that.
backstage things. David sitting on his little drum pad, doing his little thing.
Yeah, getting warmed
or
up.
watching these guys break into some kind of impromptu harmonizing over some silly song that somebody started a thing, a groove going, and all of a sudden and even Mimi jumping in,
like some funkified version of Sing Along with Mitch.
Yeah.
And it's like, here you get to see this.
Oh, it's just the best. And to be able to share those moments with people, especially because I think that Tower Power especially has so many musician fans.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like,
absolutely.
Can
we want to eat that stuff
we
up.
want to see who's working that pedal and what's going on here,
Yeah, that's watching the old masters at work.
I'm really looking forward to that. And then just because I enjoy my time with those guys, that's something. I literally used to just get bummed when Yoshi's run would end. And this year's there's not even going to be a Yoshi's run, right? Because they're kind of good doing some other stuff and getting ready for the
anniversary.
For the anniversary
50th
show.
anniversry.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
I'll be with them this coming up soon in Tahoe. I'm going to go up to Tahoe. They're going to be up at the Mont Bleu, and I'll be with them up there.
You know what? We have to say, though, there's a very small club that's been at it continuously for 50 years. And it's really Earth, Wind, and Fire, Chicago, Tower of Power.
Yeah.
Who else?
Yeah.
Is there anybody else?
Gosh, I don't know.
Really? No.
It's
That's it.
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
I
anyway.
did some stuff with Average White Band. They're like, it's just crazy. So I'm looking forward to those. And if I do get to end up doing the Paretta Soul Festival, that's kind of like a big prize, and also in my in my sights
Okay.
that it's, we'll see. It's about money.
Yeah.
As with everything else, it's always about money.
Sure.
But I've been invited by the band that sort of acts as the house band, and I've made
Wow.
connections there, and I know that some of my very good friends are going to be performing this year as they did last year, and I just hung on every live feed and video and photo I could get from that thing, and I just think it would be so amazing.
Yeah, you have to be there.
I want to take everybody along with me. You know what I mean? I really want to
Please.
kind of like
Please take us with
document,
you.
like if that happens and I know that that's going to happen, I literally want to document the journey to
Yeah.
there.
Absolutely.
You know, bumping up maybe my equipment a little, making all the arrangements and the excitement of going there. I really just want to take everybody with me. That's really kind of my dream, is to take this on the road and take this experience. You know,
we want to
take
start with,
everybody.
hey, it's a morning flight and they're serving cappuccinos and they're righteous cappuccinos.
That's right.
So,
Yeah. I want to do all that. So we'll see.
Well, we want to see you do it all. We want our listeners to go to tinaphoto.com to take a look at all the stuff that Tina does and continues to do. And everybody buy that book when it comes out. We'll send out links and all that stuff. But in the meantime,
No pressure.
Yeah. No pressure.
All right, I'll get right on it.
Anyway, Tina, thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's been a lot of fun.
It was really nice meeting you, and I've enjoyed this.